Thank you for joining us for another episode of This or That, where we discuss a variety of topics to help you make the right decision for your tank. Today we're going to talk about some unconventional filtration techniques, hang on back, and the not so popular canister filters. Josh, let's kick it off.
All right, so just to get it out of the way right now, both are amazing options, especially if you are just getting started in the hobby. You already have this stuff laying around. Like a good example is when I first got into saltwater, I got out of a 30-gallon planted tank and moved my hang-on back power filter, everything just over into a 10-gallon tank and was ready to roll.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that bars some people. It's just a stopping point when folks are looking. They're standing at the local fish store. They're thinking, oh, you know what? I really want a saltwater tank. I think that would be really cool. And then they see all the equipment. They see the thousands of dollars that go into it, the filters, the light, the sumps, and it's just daunting. It's too much for them, right? And what we're failing at is showing folks that, hey, that little canister filter or that hang on the back filter that you've got on your little freshwater tank at home is gonna work just fine for saltwater as well. There are always pros and cons and drawbacks to that you have to account for, but they work and they're cost affordable. Right? They're easy to install and use for the most part. There are, again, some issues there, but overall, they're really good choices. That's back in the day when I worked at a local fish store. Well, that was typical. It was a little hang on the back, dual bio wheel on a 55-gallon tank or something along those lines. Yeah. And if necessary, if it was big enough, a hang on the back skimmer and call it a day. We'd send people out the door. So these are viable options.
Yeah, I would agree. So specifically, canister filters, if we're talking about the two, right? And when I first started my aquarium, I went to forums, I went to go learn, and everyone said, no, canister filters, don't use canister filters, it'll never work.
Which there are drawbacks, but we'll get to those.
Exactly. If I'm starting a saltwater tank today, and it's a not reef-ready system, and I'm not spending much money, and I've got just a 20-gallon tank that maybe I want to convert from freshwater, or picked up off Craigslist or whatever it is. I'm going to canister filters over hang on the back. I started with hang on the back because everyone said I couldn't do it with a canister filter. I've got these big, bulky equipment sticking way above my tank. It's spraying salt creep all over the walls.
Yeah, for me, if I'm going to set up, let's say if I was going to go in my basement and set up a bank of tanks for, holding frags or, specimens, something like that, right? Whatever it was for. And I didn't really care about the aesthetics or anything else. All things equal, I would just throw a bunch of hang on the back filters on them because it's just quick and easy. And they're going to do the job. They're going to do exactly what I want them to do. A note on what you said, I just wanted to share this before we got too much farther, because we're just talking about how a lot of this equipment is used typically these days for freshwater only aquariums. And you can recycle those and use them for your saltwater aquariums. It's great, but a word of caution, just know where that came from. So if you do go, you buy that equipment, say from Craigslist, or somebody's like, hey, I've got this tank, do you want it? And you're like, yes, I do. I've actually had to turn people down on tanks before, even though I kind of wanted it, because maybe they had a tank that they dosed a lot of medications.
A lot of copper for ick treatment, things like that. And that absorbs into the silicone, it absorbs into the rubber, and it'll leach back out into the saltwater aquarium and cause some serious damage to some inverts. So be mindful of where that stuff's coming from and what it's been exposed to in the past.
Exactly. So we've got pro hang on back in the world where we're setting up a new tank without it being reef ready or all in one. We've got pro canister. Josh, tiebreaker.
I'm going to have to go with hang on back.
And why?
The reason I say hang on back, it's like I said earlier, that's how I started out.
Sure.
We actually tried this out back when we had the old 5-minute guide to saltwater aquariums tank set up. We had a Liberty 75 from Eheim on a 40 breeder, and that tank was fantastic.
Yeah.
It works great. I mean, long-term aesthetic-wise, probably not,
right?
Probably not the best thing to go with, but it does work, and it's a low bar for entry into a complex hobby.
Sure. Yeah, I like the way you put that. So me being pro canister, right? I don't have the trickle of the hang on back filters. Again, going back to the salt spray, I don't have that either. And if I'm setting up a canister filter, we talked about how a lot of canister filters have black, green, gray plumbing, which doesn't look good in any tank, freshwater or saltwater. I'm going to go to a freshwater supplier and get lily pipes and be done with it. So I've got an inlet, an outlet, a canister filter that majority of them are completely silent. I have no fear of salt spray. And I could fit not only my mechanical filtration, but my biological filtration, my chemical filtration, all in this one unit.
All good points. I mean, you're basically making for all intents and purposes, a media reactor. You've got, just with multiple layers of filtration. The thing I don't like about that is the overall maintenance that you would have to do with the saltwater tank.
And that's my problem with the canister filters for the most part. They're really nice because they don't take up a lot of space. They can be under your tank stand. They're, for the most part, pretty quiet, especially when they're new. Again, if you don't take care of them, they get louder. But anytime you want to do any type of maintenance, which I know you love maintenance, like a lot. You're a big maintenance guy. You've got to take this thing apart. You've got to pretty much take it all apart, look at everything in there, clean it all out, put it all back together. And most of them aren't clear either, so you can't see how dirty things are in it. So you just have to have a routine. Like, every week you get in there and you check it or something like that. So it's got to be part of the process.
You can definitely get away with, like the 2-3 months, get in there with a freshwater system,
Sure.
and do that with your canister filter. Not so much with saltwater.
Yeah, I just wouldn't recommend.
And the other side of that is as well is that a lot of these are not self-priming.
Sure. And so if you've ever had to prime one of those,
It can be a pain.
it's super fun. So find a self-priming one if you do want to get one. But the canisters are great. You can customize whatever media you want into it. Lots of versatility there. Like you said, you can get the lily pipes to make it look good in your aquarium. For me, if I'm just going for ease, hang on the back. They're super cheap. I mean, you can get one. You could literally get one for like under $50 that will handle an aquarium, the mechanical filtration at least, up to probably a 55, 65 gallon tank if you find, and at a reasonable price. Low power intake. So, I mean, they're not consuming a lot of energy, so they're not going to cost you a lot to run. For the most part, they're quiet. You do get a little bit of that surface agitation, which if you're going to have this somewhere like in your living room where you want it to be nice and quiet, and like you're all sitting around watching the scary movie and you get that nice quiet part, and then all of a sudden you have running water going. That might be a problem for you. And if you're like Josh here,
been in the hobby for a bit, and I tell you, the sound of running water sets me on edge.
That's right. You hear trickling water, and you wake up in a cold sweat. It's like, where? Why? What's happening? Right? I've flooded my floor plenty of times, and it's not a great thing. So, those pros and cons. Again, the hang on the backs are just super simple for me. And
I would like to touch on another thing that I like about hang-on backs, and that is the fact that you can actually keep all that equipment around to grow as you are getting deeper into the saltwater hobby. So, I mean, you might be able to, your first year, be able to run a hang-on back filter, no problem, but eventually you will want to get something bigger, whether that's a Reef Ready or an all-in-one. And you can still hang on to that tank. That can be your new quarantine system or your frag grow-out system.
Yeah, just find a way to modify everything, add a sump sometime. And so you can always upgrade from there. And you haven't invested thousands of dollars into this equipment, so you don't feel so bad pitching it or, setting it on a shelf somewhere when you upgrade.
This is very lopsided for hang on back, so I'm going to give you more pros of canister filters. So especially with advances in technology, you can now get canister filters with heaters built in, UV sterilizers built in, multi-chamber filtration. So going back to the major pain of changing them out, which we would say, every 5-7 days at most?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Think about it as a filter sock, right? You don't let your filter socks go more than a week at the absolute most. I mean, most of us here change them 3-4 days. So if you do go the canister filter route, just keep that in mind. You have to change the media out a lot more frequently.
Yeah, especially if you're one of those folks that don't like doing water changes either, right? And you're just kind of letting things go. It's
That's me. That's me. Exactly. All right. Anything else, Josh, on the hang on backside?
No, I'm still firmly entrenched.
All right, there we go. Okay, so hopefully we've helped you make a decision for either your first or your next saltwater tank that's not reef ready or all-in-one, and reduce the barrier to entry. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.